So all of us, in our own process of awakening, will inextricably visit the limitation of our personal will. And most of us will visit the limitation several different times on deeper and deeper and deeper levels until it is really fully extinguished. The loss of personal will isn't really a loss at all. It's not then when we lose it that we become the doormat of humanity, that we don't know what to do or how to do it. Quite the opposite. By surrendering the personal, the illusion of the personal, a whole different state of consciousness is born in us. A rebirth happens, almost like a resurrection happens from deep within us. Now this resurrection and this new birth, this rebirth, is very hard to explain, like many things in spirituality are. But we start to be moved by the completeness and totality of life itself. This may sound mysterious or mystical, but it's actually not. The depiction of this kind of movement is very vivid in the Taoist tradition, where the Taoist tradition focuses very much on the movement and expression of the Tao or the truth through us, of the movement of the eternal. And if you read through the Tao Te Ching or look at some of the teachings, you'll start to get a feel that in the place of willfulness comes a sense of flow. When you get out of the driver's seat, you find that life can drive itself for itself, that actually life has always been driving itself. But nonetheless, when you get out of the driver's seat, it can drive itself so much easier. It can flow in ways you never imagined. Life becomes almost magical, because now the illusion of the me is no longer in the way of it, and you never know where it will go. People often ask myself, well, as their personal will may be diminishing, they will come up and say, I don't even know how to make a decision anymore. Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I go here? Should I go there? But to such people, I can only say, that domain where you made decisions from a personal point of view is diminishing. That is no longer how you're going to be operating. There's a new way of operating, and it's not really about making this decision or making that decision, of making the right decision or the wrong decision. It's much more like navigating a flow. You feel where events are moving. You feel the right thing to do, not right in the sense of right or wrong, but almost more in the sense of a river knows which way to turn around a rock, to the left or the right. It just has an intuitive, innate sense of knowing. Now this is always available to us, but most of us are too lost in the complexities of our thought and our thinking and our feeling to be sensitive enough to feel that there's a simple and natural flow. But underneath the turmoil of thought and emotion, and underneath the grasping of the personal will, there is a flow. There is a simple movement of life. One of my favorite definitions of enlightenment was by a Jesuit priest, a very enlightened Jesuit priest named Anthony de Mello, who passed away some years ago. And someone asked him to define his experience of enlightenment. And he said this. He said, enlightenment is absolute cooperation with the inevitable. And I love that because it's a definition of enlightenment that is not just the realization of enlightenment, but it's the activity of enlightenment. It is when everything within us is in cooperation with the flow of life itself, with the flow of inevitability. We're not resisting what's inevitable. And when we're not so conflicted and divided inside, we actually get a feel for the inevitable, where life is moving, what direction it's going in. And we're no longer asking, is it the right way? How do I know that this is the right way? Is it the wrong way? These kind of questions actually distort our perception. There's something much more subtle. It's just the flow of life itself. And as we let go, as we surrender this willfulness, as we meet the fear in the gut, as we find that sincere willingness to say yes to whatever we're afraid of, to say yes to life, to say yes to death, to say yes to the ego's own dissolving, a simple yes and a sincere yes. Everything that I'm speaking about becomes available for us. We become conscious of it. It's not something we have to struggle for anymore. It becomes a new way of navigating through life. Flow is what navigates us through life, not concept, not ideas, not what we should do, what we shouldn't do, what's right, what's wrong. But there's a sense of flow. And over time, what we come to see is that flow is always amazing. That flow is actually the expression of unity. That flow tends to bring things together in ways that we couldn't imagine. That flow tends to direct one's existence in ways that are actually healing and loving. And so by just starting to perceive things as awakening through these various centers, through the level of mind, through the level of heart or emotion, through the level of gut or existential self, just notice if there's any fixation on any of these levels. And if there is, just give your attention to it. Start to open to it. Question it and meditate with it. And it will start to open. You'll start to see what you need to see. It will be revealed to you what you need to do or to see or to let go of. And by doing so, there will become a much more smooth harmonization between realization and your human experience. That gap between what we realize and who we are as a human being will diminish more and more and more. And it's the diminishing of that gap which is really the fulfillment of what we call enlightenment or liberation.